Right, back live with you tonight on In Focus. Thanks for staying on. Unisa professional ethics lecturer Mametlwe Sebei believes the Higher Education Department's decision to place the institution under administration is an attack on its independence and freedom. It follows an independent report into allegations of maladministration and tender irregularities at the country's largest university. Sebei joins us in studio for more on that. Good to have you, and thank you very much for your time.
Good evening to you and to your viewers.
The independent panel report is probably, the second or third report coming from the institution that would have pointed to the same issues of maladministration that would need to be attended to. Why do you believe placing the institution under administration would have been the better decision?
Look, you have got to get a sequence of events very clear. One is that there was a ministerial task team report that was completed and I think submitted around 2021. And that report identified most of the problems that are actually correctly also highlighted by the independent assessors report. And these are issues around student service, issues around ICT support, issues around administration, issues around financial management within the institutions, as well as institutional governance issues. And the question, and I think the issue that for me, which I raise, is what has then happened since the submission of that report in 2021? University has, implemented quite a number of changes, including at level of management, and I think those changes have brought about, certain restructurings. And what were we seeing? We're seeing results of some of those things. I think there are efforts at all levels of university to improve student support, to ensure that, there are problems, the problems of financial maladministration are being addressed and so on. And the results are already evident, right? The results of the university have improved from 9 billion in 2021 to 16 billion, I think, as of last year. And from the measures that we hear about, where more and more tenders are being cancelled and terminated, services are being insourced, there's every reason to believe that financial sustainability of university will continue to be a top priority of this management. But I also think that there are measures that have been taken to improve quality of student support. I'm placed within, College of Law, and I can tell you, I've seen the changes that have taken place there. In terms of the governance of the college, but also think that just in terms of the student support.
Place for me then on that timeline, right? From the ministerial task team to the independent assessor. Because what it seems you're saying is that the independent assessor's report could potentially be ignoring the improvements that have been put in place since the ministerial task team report.
I'm actually saying that the independent assessor's report added absolutely nothing to what was already identified by ministerial task team, report. If anything, it just brought about sensational allegations that have no basis. And I can just take you through just the two of them, right? Is the issues around the house, the issues around the car, and in respect of the house, I've forwarded you an email that are doing circulation where it is very clear that this VC insisted on the investigation around inflation of prices, regarding the renovations at the house, the stories around curtains and all of the things and so on. I've challenged people that have said these are, facts to say, bring proof. What we are seeing are emails where the VC says she cannot have so much money, from poor taxpayers being spent on this outrageous, and she demanded investigation, and actions have been taken against those that I think are implicated in that. But also look at what they're saying about the College of Law where I'm located. You see, the Musia says that, the College of Law is under a dean who is not qualified. A dean is a professor, right? And the basis for such, a sensational allegation is that he is not, that Professor Kule is not professor of law. When we actually, in Unisa, we don't actually have College of Law, so to speak. We have College of Law and Criminal Justice, right? He is from the school of criminal justice. I am from the School of Law. What that means, it means any person who is a professor in any of these two schools, either a School of Law or a School of Criminal Justice, can become the dean of the college. Now, these are very basic things that anyone who has done serious investigation and has thought over the issue would have realized that they have no basis. And I can go on and on about a number of these issues that I think, the independent assessor is misleading public about, and I think it is because he is conflicted. And I think we've been able to point out how it's conflicted.
But why would then placing an administrator not be the right thing to do? Because you've got these parties that essentially would still need to be investigated still, because there was clearly an inflation of prices in the matter that has got to do with the renovation of the VC's house. As you're saying, she herself has called for that investigation. There are issues around the question that needs to be clarified around the College of Law and so on and so forth. Would it not serve better to have an administrator being in place at this time to continue the functioning of the institution while all these matters are being cleared out and being resolved?
I mean, two things, right? One is that I've already spoken about financial sustainability, but I think we've got to look at the integrity and the credibility of the academic project, right? Every single ranking of the university have placed university, within the top 10 of the institutions. This week alone, I think there was a release of a Shanghai ranking consultancy, which placed Unisa within top 8 institutions within the country. And that report looks at things like, the number of research, the academic performance per, capita of that university and so on. And, a few months ago, I think there was a report from the Times World University Ranking Report, which looked at the impact of the research of the institutions on the UN, development goals, right? And again, the university was actually placed at number 7. Yeah. But also, the, annual institutional audit conducted by Council of Higher Education gave Unisa 10 commendation out of the 16 standards of the council itself, right? And in respect of the remaining, there was no adverse, finding on the university. It just says these are areas for improvement and so on. The Department of Higher Education and Training, its own research output report, again also placed Unisa at number 8, right? Now, I can go on, but every single report shows that the academic project remains intact, that our programs are credible, that notwithstanding all of these problems, university is not in a complete state of dysfunctionality. Yeah. So I therefore say that from that point of view, from that perspective, there is no justification. But more importantly for me is this. You see, when you look at universities of the whole public service, they are the only point of reference for what a viable public services looks like. And what is unique about universities? What is unique about universities compared to, say, for instance, hospitals, clinics, but also state-owned enterprises, which everywhere are collapsing, is because universities enjoy institutional autonomy. And I think they are governed by what within the workers' movement is the closest thing to what we call the principle of democratic working class control. Because we have council based on elections by the members of the academic staff, by the workers, by the students, and representatives of the community. I'm not saying that the model is very perfect, but I'm saying that it is precisely that model of democratic governance, so to speak, that has insulated universities from predatory corporate interest, but also accumulation by dispossession, looting and plundering that we see across the public service. Yeah. Reality is that I think this is a conversation that we need to have. Yeah. What has really, because universities have become a site of accumulation, yes, right? Yeah. And I think it is functional to a formation of entrepreneurial class in this country, which we have seen what is the impact of its looting and its plundering of public services. And the question is it here Is it where we want to go?
But that's the question, isn't that the question, that there are some, others are saying, in that council who are compromised. There are some in the management who are compromised. And so what do you suggest should happen? Yes, the academic program might be progressing and might be performing well, student performance might be doing very well, but you still have these elements that need to be dealt with within council, within management.
I've never said that, in fact, if you look at all my op-eds, I point out that every single problem that has been identified in the ministerial task team report and issues in respect of which students are crying about, right, of service and art, all of those issues are valid and legitimate. The question we've got to be asking ourselves is, in what direction is the movement of Unisa? Are things improving or are actually getting worse, particularly in the past 2 years? And I think what is evident from the measures that have been taken by the management is that these are people that are on the right track. And I think what we need to do is to support them in saying, how do we purge the university of all these corrupt elements? In the op-ed that I've listed before this one, is that I agree that the university must be purged of all corrupt elements, of all predatory interests. I'm actually against outsourcing of any service within the university, because it is precisely that is attracting all of these elements. All I'm arguing in this is that there is no basis for administration. In fact, you just have to look across the country. What is experience of administration? Look at Fort Hare. Fort Hare is coming out of administration between 2019 and 2021. What has happening at Fort Hare? You have a VC that goes around with bodyguards. Even those are not enough. His bodyguards have been killed, right? There is a state of civil war in Fort Hare. But it's not only Fort Hare. I can go on a number of institutions. And what is evident to me, including institutions like your TUT and others, which at some point actually was under administration by the very Prof. Messia and other things and so on. In the aftermath of that administration, you have Prof. Ugude actually resigning because of the crisis in that university and other things and so on. It took struggles, particularly of workers, against outsourcing in that university, to also begin to have normalization alongside efforts of number of stakeholders within the university. Yeah. So I'm arguing that, for instance, if minister want to deal with the problems at Unisa, he can issue directives in terms of these are 1, 2, 3 areas that I want fixed and other things and so on.
But it still speaks then to your question of the independence of the institution, is it not? I mean, if we want to get rid of the vested interests and the agendas that are at play, including some of those that you're saying are within the institution's fiscus that are inflating prices and so on and so forth, if the minister is giving directive, is it not still the same thing?
No, directive is to say, I want to see these improvements, but also I'm saying that to the extent that, this, I've not been involved with politics of Unisa that much, but, I also say that you could have a fresh election of council. Yeah. And I think there should be a debate within the university to say what type and quality of people, representative of workers, of students, of academics that we send to council to ensure the integrity of the institutional governance. And I think that, alongside directives based on these findings, many of which are not subject to contestation, right, that we are able to say this is a roadmap to improve the quality of the academic program, the output of research, but I think also the role of the university in a broader society.
What do you make of the independent assessors report on the VC not meeting the requirements because of a vague advert criteria?
I mean, I look at that. I mean, again, it's just one of those sensational allegations. The reality is that I know that, I mean, she has been involved in, senior management of institutions for a very long time. I know that she was previously Dean of Students at university. I know that she was part of the senior management from the UOFs, just from the report itself in terms of her background and all of that. But I think, for me, I mean, if that was really something that is questionable, are the allegations that the process was corrupt? And why is that not being challenged legally so that it can be tested in a court of law? None of that is being raised. I mean, as I'm saying, lots of what Musia makes in that report is quite sensational, right? If anything, what I've seen with management at this point in time is an attempt to say, how then do you address the issue of qualifications at various levels? And I've seen changes within the colleges, within even the department where I'm located, where, people with doctorates now are being appointed, but also we are coming under pressure as academics to actually obtain, doctorate and, doctoral qualifications. And I think for me, that speaks to university that is very serious. And I don't hold a brief, by the way, right, for the management of the university and other things. All I'm saying is that South African has got to think about this. They've got to think about, do you have faith and confidence, right, in the workers, the students, and all the movements within the university, which I think, notwithstanding all the problems, I have no fetish about our movements. I mean, you can see even some of these unions at university that are implicated in scandals around, and I think the fact that they're implicated in some of these scandals around corruption, all the things and so on. But I'm saying that I think the average worker and the students of the university, an average community member who appreciate the fact that this is the biggest institution in the country. Yeah. This is an institution where about a third of the students of the whole country are actually enrolled in and so on. And I think an average person from any of these stakeholders appreciate the fact that we've got to place university on a very sound governance, but also in ensuring that we defend the integrity of the academic program and its research output and all the things and so on. And I think a conversation with every of these constituencies and ensuring that we conduct elections that will make sure that the council reflect that commitment on the part of various stakeholders of the university. That is the way to go about. And if the minister wants to intervene on that, right, he should be able to assist and support that process. But just think about this. You see, what worries me for me is when I see the minister's decision, amongst others, taking the point that Musia makes about splitting of tenders. And that instance is referred in Musia's report in connection to an instance where university, for instance, reversed a tender for laptop procurement, right? You had a situation where in procurement for laptops for the staff members was going to be done through a tender, and instead, this new management, what it has then decided was that the staff must be given the cash advance to go and buy the laptop in an open market. I got my cash advance. I went to, what connection, something like that, and, a shop that sell the laptops. There's no opportunity for corruption there. And from what accounting reports we're receiving is that alone saved the university over 400 million, right? That is individual staff members buying in an open market laptop and bringing the receipts and registering the asset with the ICT department of the university, right? We've saved over 400 million. Now, when the minister says that is a problem, that must go to a tendering process that is going to be costing us over 400 million. That is a reason for my concern, and that should be a reason for a concern for any students, for any worker, for any academic, and for any member of community who is concerned about the fate of Unisa. Let's
talk about the remedial action. I mean, you are suggesting a vote on the council. Minister can issue directive on areas that he needs to be addressed. Are you also suggesting that more investigations be done? People are tired of investigations. We know the nature of what it is. You yourself saying what this independent assessor comes up with is nothing new from what the ministerial task team has come up with. So not another investigation, but what remedial intervention needs to be put in place?
No, the university has already actually done a number of investigations from what I could see. There was a report recently circulating around investigation regarding inflation of prices, right, at the VC's house, right? People responsible that need to be held accountable, right? University, as I'm saying, is taken a number of measures, including termination of tenders. I think, for me, any future Unisa must be Unisa free of any tendering process, because that is a problem, not only in Unisa, but across the entire public service. We need to decouple our universities from the whole model of accumulation by dispossession, of the public service.
Yeah.
That entail corruption, that entail briberies, that entail all these predatory interests that are connected to outsourcing and so on. In any event, as part of the workers' movement, we fought so that, workers are brought into, full permanent employment of universities so that there's no such thing and so on. We need to continue the struggle to ensure that university is able to, perform its own services and all its transactions are conducted with absolute integrity and without any, rental and corrupt interests that are always associated with these sort of things and so on. And I think for me, we have to have a bigger conversation about the role of the university in society. And I think for me, the focus about the transformation of society, of Unisa, must be about those bigger issues. What impact is our academic program? What impact is our research? But also, how then do we mobilize what resources Unisa have to ensure that it has a maximum and the greatest impact in society, in our community, particularly working class communities, right? First and foremost, obviously, by broadening, access, opening the doors of learning to many students, but also making sure that those students receive the support, when they enroll, in terms of, tuition, in tutorials, support and so on. But also just easing our administrative systems and also making sure that they receive every support that they can. But also just making sure, what do we do with the vast intellectual capital that are there? We have, lawyers there. We have specialists in all these sorts of fields. How then do you channel all of that to ensure that we begin to engage with the problems in our communities? What becomes the meaning of an engaged scholarship in this context, where we have lots of academics that will very gladly be doing number of work in communities, and I think Unisa need to be able to speak about that, and that has to be the subject of our discussion about transformation at university, which at the moment we're not having because of all these sensational reports that I think are taking away the focus from these real and bigger issues.
So, Sebei, appreciate your time. Let's leave it there. Thank you very much for coming in. Mametlwe Sebei there, lecturer. As you heard him there, he's with the Department of the College of Law at Unisa. Right.